Hi, I'm B from Nectar Mechanics, and in today's video, we're going to be making my very own 3D printed and transforming Sideswipe figure. So if you're a part of my Nectar Mechanics Discord group, The Hive, then you'll know that I've partnered up with Hobbies with Jose to make his very own 3D printed jazz action figure. But this video is not about that. I want to wait until he's finished printing off his resin copy. This video is about retools. So what are retools? Well, retools are where a figure has one or more parts changed to make a new figure. These can be really minor, like a new head and paint job, but other times so many parts are changed that they barely look the same at all. So the main reason that toy companies will do this is to save time and money. If they already know that most of the figure works, they only need to test the new pieces. And it's the same case for me. Now, taking a look at my jazz figure, I was wondering, who can I turn him into? The obvious choices would be Prowl or one of the Datsun brothers, or maybe even Hound or Skids, but then I thought, what about Sideswipe? I know, hear me out. They both have the back half of the car form their lower legs, the roof of the car forms mostly a backpack, the bonnet is the torso, and the arms don't really interact with the car mode a lot. Do you see it? Do you see it? What about this Digibash? Is that closer? Is that... Just trust me, just trust me. The main difference though is that the car bonnet is flat on the chest rather than sticking out. But I don't think that could be too hard, right? Right? So, let's open up a copy of my Jazz Blender file and get to work. Starting off with, I'm going to retool the head. Now, I'm trying my best to keep this as close to the G1 cartoon as I can, but as with most things with the G1 cartoon, it's very inconsistent. Sometimes his head's more of a rectangle, other times it's more of a cube, so I figured let's do a Star Lord and a bit of both. From there, I decided let's just tackle the most difficult part of the project right out the gate, the torso. You know how I said that car bonnet needs to lay flat? Well, that actually impacts a lot of other pieces surrounding it, which means it's going to be a lot more work than I initially anticipated. So much for saving time. I ended up stretching Jazz's bonnet into a close enough Lamborghini shape that I could then get to work. From there, I split the bonnet into chunks so that the part with the shoulders would stay the same, but the new bonnet would be able to fold down and lock into the waist. That way I don't need to completely rework everything. From there, I could remove his door wings from the back and instead give him that new backpack made out of the front glass, attached on little armature hinges. Seeing as those shoulder doors are gone now, I need to make them attached to his forearms like in G1. In the end, I came up with a sliding mechanism that let them sit nice and centered to his forearms in robot mode, but then stretch to attach to the rest of the car. That meant I didn't need to rework even more just to move the forearms down, just the new doors. So that's all the major mechanical engineering headaches out the way. Now it's time for the aesthetics, and we're going to start with the robot mode, because that should be easier. All I want to change is just a little greebles on his arms and legs, give him his white knee pads and whatnot. Thankfully, this part of the retool process was nice and quick, and we can move to the car mode. Instead of reshelling the car mode, I reused the topology of the Porsche and stretched it to fit some Lambo schematics I found online. From there, I used reference images to try and capture the flow of the car. It's definitely a lot more squared off than a Porsche, but it still has plenty of curves that, if I get wrong, will mess with the look. Sometimes it was really little details like the bonnet. It's got an almost capital A shape in the middle, and as soon as I tweaked mine to have that, it looked miles better. Another big difference is that Sideswipe's car mode isn't quite as long as Jazz. So when I tweaked the back bumper, I also had to tweak the legs so it would all still tap together. This is an interesting thing about making Transformers figures that I don't see enough people talk about. It's the fact that because it turns from a robot to whatever, if you change one piece, it's not just interacting with the pieces around it, it's interacting with the pieces around it in the other mode. It all sort of dominoes and interacts with each other, and it can get quite complicated very quick. So as you'll see in my time lapses, I'm using Blender's animation feature to check the parts over in both modes. I still might miss a couple pieces clipping every so often if I'm not paying too close attention, but it definitely saves me a lot of headaches trying to visualize where the pieces will go. Finally, it's time for his shoulder cannon. Now, I couldn't tell if it fired from the tip or it fired off the tip, and I really want this to be blast effect compatible, so I decided, why not I do it so that it's got a 5mm hole in the tip of the missile, and then the missile itself is attached via a 5mm peg. That way, you can do either or, and it's entirely how you want. So with all that out of the way, it's finally time for some test prints. Now in theory, everything should just work off the print bed, but as I've discovered with all things in 3D printing, nothing is certain, and there was a lot of new pieces in the torso, so I want to check it first. And I was right, those armature hinges connecting the backpack were nice and thin, so they'd just snap immediately. Things like his waist didn't actually have enough clearance now because of the new tooling, so his hips could barely move, and the car spoiler on the back of the legs would always get caught during transformation. Thankfully, although the list of changes is long, they're all small changes, so let's go back into Blender and finish it all off. Once again, I was reworking that torso to account for new, thicker hinges. I also reworked his waist so that the bonnet would actually tab into it properly instead of getting stuck sometimes, and I also made that car spoiler taller. And then I worked through the rest of the model trying to just finesse it as much as I can. Now there's no way that I can get this perfect. It's an FDM 3D print, even if the model was fine, the prints might not be consistent, but I'm just trying my best to get it as close as I can. That's why I do the prototyping now instead of just sanding it till it works. So, with all that finally done, it's time for the final print and the final assembly. I am so proud with how this bot turned out. The fact that I could pull off such an extensive retool in such a short amount of time, it's made me a lot more confident in my 3D modeling skills. Now, if you like this print as much as I do, the files will be available for purchase down the description below. Otherwise, if you like what you saw and you want to see more, feel free to subscribe, and I'll catch you next time. Farewell!